Hi, I'm Jim Shaw, publisher of the Colonial Times Magazine here in Lexington, also a member of the board of directors of LexMedia. And we're here once again with another segment of Coffee with the Candidates. But this morning, I'm sitting here with Kate Colburn, who has been in Lexington for 9 years? Mm-hmm. 9 years, and has 3 children in the public schools here, Diamond and Fisk. Kate is a consultant with capital planning and school master plans. Mm-hmm. So this is an area that you've come to know pretty well.
That's right.
Good. You've been active with the PTO and the PTAs mm-hmm. at both of the schools that your kids go to. You're a town meeting member from Precinct 4.
Right.
And you founded the Lexington Parents Advocacy Group, which deals with overcrowding in the schools and right. addressing those kinds of needs. Mm-hmm. And recently, or actually, I don't know how long you've been serving, but the town moderator had appointed you to serve on the Appropriations Committee.
That's right.
So you've got some experience working with some of the financial situations here in Lexington.
Yes.
So let me just start with this. You obviously feel very strongly about the schools. Why are you running, and why is it so important for you to serve on the school committee?
Well, first, thank you so much for doing this. I've always found this incredibly helpful mm-hmm. when other people have been running, and so I really appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Well, we're happy to do it.
But I initially got involved in town government because of an issue that was happening with the schools. Mm-hmm. My family and I moved to Lexington 9 years ago. I got involved in the way that a lot of parents do through the PTO and through Lex Fund, and I was involved in my children's preschool. And then in the fall of 2013, the superintendent at the time, Dr. Ash, came to Fisk and said, we don't have enough classrooms for next year, and we're not sure what we're going to do. Mm. And it just was alarming to me because we moved to Lexington thinking, this is a wonderful system. They've got it figured out, and I was just surprised that the schools had become that crowded without it being addressed at that point. Mm-hmm. And so I started paying a closer attention. I really wanted to educate myself, and so I started going to school committee meetings. I started seeing what their plans were, what was happening, what wasn't happening. I decided to run for town meeting in the beginning of 2014, so I'm actually up for re-election in town meeting also. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be on both ballots at the same time?
I will be,
Good.
Yes.
Good for you.
And because I wanted to understand how this school issue fit into the larger picture of the town.
Right.
And I also wanted to learn more about what was happening in the town in other areas. So I was elected to town meeting. I started speaking more at the school committee meetings and getting a little bit more involved, but found that one person speaking is sometimes not as powerful as more people speaking on an issue. And I decided in the fall of 2014 to pull together other parents who had similar concerns in other schools. I had seen that the debate over space sometimes became a fight for resources between schools, and I didn't think that was productive.
Right, pitting one school against the next.
Right. And so I thought if we could pull together groups of parents who are engaged on this issue at every level and at every school, and really focus on how we could encourage solutions that address the problem at the town level. I thought that would be much more helpful to the school committee, much more helpful to the town, and could potentially move things forward. Right. And so we did, and I'm really proud of the work we did. We started doing summaries of meetings to inform parents about what was happening. If you're a parent, it's very difficult to attend school committee meetings, and if you rely on the minutes, they're often delayed and they don't really give you the full picture. So we started doing neutral summaries of meetings. We would take some advocacy positions on certain things, and at one point did an entire summary of the capacity and space issue for the benefit of town meeting members so that they could be informed.
And let's stop right there for a second. And what did you find?
What we found was that it was difficult for the school committee often to do the deep analysis and presentation that they needed to do in order to be able to justify some of the projects that they were considering. And we found that the town meeting members were actually very receptive to receiving this type of information. And we did find that it raised the profile of the issue, and it became much more in the forefront of parents' minds, I believe, in part because of the work we did.
And the overcrowding, I mean, it's really not just it's not an ancillary issue. I mean, it has a direct impact on learning.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked to a lot of teachers over the last few years about this issue. And one conversation in particular sticks out in my mind, but this is a teacher who had 5 more students in her class than she was supposed to have under the school committee guidelines. And she said, not only is she not able to focus on the children the way she'd like to, and give them the attention that they need, but she said that given the amount of testing and assessment that goes on, this is at the elementary level, you know, where you have to take a child, take them out into the hallway, give them an assessment, and then bring them back. And then you take the next child out into the hallway and repeat.
And this doesn't account for other students who may be on special ed plans.
Right, right. But when you add 5 children to that time, it really cuts into the amount of time she had with the whole class. And she said it leads to this feeling of stress in the classroom because it can sometimes become more about crowd control than learning. And if the teacher's stressed, the children feel stressed. And I've seen this in multiple levels. I mean, we've heard at the high school about students eating in the hallways because there isn't room in the cafeteria. I heard from one parent recently that the computer science class is almost impossible to get into because they just don't have the space to add more sections of it.
I was amazed to learn, and I grew up here in Lexington and attended Harrington School and Muzzy when it was a junior high school. But I was amazed to hear that students at Estabrook routinely ate. The old Estabrook were eating on the floor in the hallways, and I never knew that. So how do we address that now? What conclusions have you come to? Like, you know, there's been some discussion about adding a 7th elementary school, acquiring possibly the Sisters Academy campus or what. So if someone was to ask you, give me a hard fact about how where we should go with this.
Yeah, I think this is where I just have a fundamentally different approach than some of the current members of the school committee. And that is that I feel that the school committee should first and foremost be advocates for the needs of the schools. I think they should be able to look at what their academic program is and say, okay, we need the space to do this, and then move forward with a plan that actually addresses it. Right now, unfortunately, the elementary school plan is far short of what we need. And this is not just my opinion. This has been noted by several school committee members and the superintendent and the consultants who have looked at it. And in my mind, it is the school committee's responsibility to put forward a plan that addresses it. Now, I think the reason that some of the current school committee members have not done that is that they're concerned about the impact on taxpayers, and I think that's legitimate. But what I would say is that it's not up to the school committee to decide what taxpayers will approve or not approve. I think every one of us has a different tolerance for tax impact depending on our income level, depending on our relationship with the schools, depending on our philosophical feeling about property taxes. And I think the school committee needs to do its best effort to put forward a plan that addresses the problem, keeping in mind that you always want the most efficient solution. You always want to maximize value for taxpayers. But put it out there so that the people who actually decide what we build, which is town meeting with input from the finance committees, and ultimately the voters, can make a choice. Right now what's happening is that the school committee is deciding in advance what the taxpayers will bear. And so we're not even having the opportunity to meet our needs. And I think that's,
And
I have a problem with that.
For the first time this year, our school budget is going to be going over $100 million.
Yes, that's right. And a lot of that is a function of enrollment growth because the most expensive portion of the operating budget is staffing. And so when you add more children, you need more staff. It's difficult to get around that. I will say that the superintendent is making a very strong effort along with the town manager to try to control the operating budget as much as possible. I think that's great. But I do think that the school committee should not necessarily pass by every potential academic improvement if it, if they see it adding cost. I think they need to take a comprehensive look at the operating budget. And so if they're presented with a proposal for an academic improvement, to say, okay, well, let's see how that fits in with all of our other priorities.
Right.
Not necessarily just to knee-jerk say no because it costs more, but to say, is there something else that's not as high of a priority that we could use to offset the cost of that? And that's the approach I would like to take.
Okay, well, that kind of leads us to the next topic, which is when you're talking about leadership and people making those types of decisions and working harmoniously with the board, working with the administration. I assume that that you want to be part of a team of people that sort of working together cohesively. Yes. And then obviously the challenge, we're going to lose at least 4 major administrators: the human resources director, the high school principal, the music director, Jeffrey Leonard, who's left an indelible mark, and then of course Pat Goddard, who's the facilities director. These are some big shoes to fill.
Yes.
And so it's going to require really working together. It's going to require some vision. You're looking forward to working with people because the leadership has to start somewhere, whether it's from the board and then working to fill these vacancies. Your thoughts there?
I completely agree with you, and I think that it's going to be particularly important for the school committee to come together with a shared vision, not just of what they want for facilities, although that's very important, but what they want for academic programming as well, and to consistently move toward that vision. I think that sometimes we've seen in the past that there's not consensus among school committee members, and so it leads to lack of progress, indecision, a lot of delay, and that's not only does that impede the ability for students and teachers to have what they need, but it's more expensive. Delay is very costly, particularly when you're talking about construction. And so it's going to be critically important that this group work well together and can exercise a vision. And I have a lot of confidence. I mean, it'll be interesting to see who steps into the one-year term in terms of the chemistry of the committee. But I do think that I can help the group and work with the group toward exercising that vision. And I will also say that it's going to be critically important to provide that kind of leadership as all these staff positions change.
How about, there have been proposed ideas, to kind of moving into a different issue, back at the high school. There've been some talk about, late start times and all of that, that may help sort of reduce stress and help kids sort of flow better. What do you think about something like that?
I'm actually really, really excited about the willingness of our current superintendent to explore other ways of delivering curriculum. I think there is a lot of research showing that changes in scheduling, changes in how classes are structured can have a real impact on students and their engagement, their motivation, and their ability to problem solve out into the future. And to the extent that the superintendent is willing to look at making changes like that, I find that very exciting. I think it's certainly, this is a big ship. It would take a while to turn it around, but the fact that she's willing to at least start that process is very, very exciting to me, and I would like to be a part of that, and I would like to support her in that effort.
Okay, we've got just a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
So I wanted to, there was another one of the standard questions that have been sort of approached over the last couple of years: stress in the schools, kids dealing with stress, and some of the programs that they're dealing with or doing to deal with stress. What do you think about that? Do you have thoughts on that?
It's critically important. It's critically important that we are willing to provide the support to staff members to be able to implement programs that they think will be effective. Right now, we have Julie Fenn at the high school who's doing incredible work.
Which is amazing,
yeah, and just such an asset to the
She
community.
really connects with the kids.
She really does, and I think her work is so important right now, and we need to make sure that she has the support she needs to be able to implement her vision.
But it's something that's important to you personally.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a son who will go to high school next year, and it's on my mind all the time. And so it's personally important to me, but more importantly, as a system, we see that it's a problem. You know, we have reached the pinnacle of achievement by any traditional measure. You know, we have great test scores, our kids go to great colleges, but we have you know, almost every student reporting severe stress. And we have far too many students who have contemplated or tried to take their own lives, and I find that personally upsetting, and as a system, we've got to do something about it. We've got to look at how we define success as a system, and to me, success means not only academic achievement, but also social and emotional health for our students.
Okay, so as we're closing here, this is sort of a standard question I'm going to ask all of the candidates. If I'm and I am a registered voter, I never miss elections. I'm what you call the super voter, right? What would you say to me? Why should I vote for you?
I think that the Lexington school system is one of the top priorities of the town, always has been. It's part of who we are as Lexingtonians, is that we value our schools and we take care of our schools. And I think it's vitally important that the school committee reflect that commitment, that they are willing to be leaders, to give the schools the resources they need, and to also make smart choices so that the system is sustainable into the future. I have been committed to these issues. I have worked on them as a parent, as an advocate, as a town meeting member, as an appropriation committee member. I feel
and an attorney too. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
That's right. I bring those skills to the table too. But you know, I believe that with that experience and the skills that I have, I can have a real impact.
Great.
And I appreciate every vote.
And if people wanted to find out more about you, they can visit your website?
Yes, it's colburnforlexington.com, and it's F-O-R, not the number 4.
Okay.
Yep.
And they can find out more about you. They can contact you there.
Yes.
They want to know more about you.
Yes,
whatever.
and I would be more than willing to have conversation with anyone who would like to meet me, and so they can get in touch with me on my website.
Well, I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. Thank you very much, Kate, for being with us.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Great.